Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome. Glad to have you here for another episode of Hockey Talk with yours truly, Sam from Samwell B12. Great to be here. Today is a very exciting night. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to discuss, and a lot going on. So let's not waste any time and we'll jump right in and get going. So where do we start tonight? There's been so much happening around the league, and tonight is really it's for us. This is getting ready for the regular season, which is coming up this week. The last few games of the preseason are occurring. Teams are shuffling their rosters. Good evening, Coaster Mom. Welcome. Thanks for coming in. Hello, Carla. Thanks for coming in as well. And hello, everybody else that's watching that hasn't popped in the chat yet. So as I was saying, today is a great evening. Hello, Shauna. Especially the Leafs, they just wrapped up playing their preseason against the Ottawa Senators, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. And that there's been so much. And the reason this is such an exciting time of year is because, as I said off the top, rosters are changing. Things are happening so fast. There's so many moving parts. And I'm so excited to get into it with you because this really is one of my favorite time of year. The kickoff of the regular hockey season, along with trade deadline day and free agent signing day. This is really exciting. So right off the top, for any new viewer that has joined us or is watching this in the replay, I do want to let you know when you do watch us live and you're active in the chat, you're going to earn points, and those points can be played throughout the stream. So if you are earning points, do exclamation mark points, and usually it takes about 5 minutes or so of viewing and being in the chat to earn your points. Exclamation mark points will show you what you have, and then you can gamble and play along with the others as you'll see happening. So for those who are new, welcome, enjoy. If you want to engage in the chat, feel free. If you want to just sit back and relax, that's okay too. So a couple announcements right off the top, especially with this being a big week of the NHL kicking off. Hey, Holly, welcome in. Lindsay, I'm not sure if I said hi or not, so hello. Erica, hey, welcome. Awesome. We're getting so many new people today. This is great. So, big announcement to kick off the show. Lindsay, I know you and I are going to duel a little bit with you being a Montreal Canadiens fan, and that's okay, and me being a Leafs fan. So this Wednesday at 7 o'clock is the kickoff for the season for both the Leafs and the Habs. We're playing each other. Toronto Maple Leafs, Montreal Canadiens, 7 p.m. Wednesday. We are doing a special second screen watch along for this game. I will have a special guest with me. We'll be kind of two screens. We'll be talking, we'll be watching the game, we'll be talking about the game. So it is currently scheduled on the channel. Feel free, go in, set your reminder, but join us Wednesday at 7 for our first ever hockey watch along. It is going to be awesome. So let's get into the news at hand today. Some big news with what we're seeing, and I'm just going to kind of pull up my notes here because so much has been happening with the games today. First and foremost, the Leafs are trying to set their rosters, and they're going to do it really after today's game tomorrow. But a big injury for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Ilya Mikheyev awkwardly hit into the boards, tripped over his stick, went down hard. He is out for an indefinite amount of time. He'll be looked at and treated, maybe an x-ray, but this could have a huge impact to how the roster gets filled out. Also, around the league, big injuries. Austin Matthews was not back today for the preseason game. He is scheduled to be there for Wednesday's season opener against Montreal, but only time will tell. As well, Alexander Ovechkin, the big gun from the Washington Capitals, is out. He went down hard. Not sure the duration of his injury, but he will be out for a little bit. Some other news from training camp. Max Domi is set to make his preseason debut today. I didn't get a chance to check and see if he did suit up or not for the Columbus Blue Jackets, but it looks like everything looked like he was going to partake. Alex Galchenyuk, who was a Leaf last year and previously a Montreal Canadian, he has now with the Arizona Coyotes. He did go down with an injury as well, an upper body injury. He had just signed a 1-year contract on Wednesday, attending training camp on a professional tryout contract. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Galchenyuk and the Coyotes. From the Chicago Blackhawks, Jonathan Toews, he is expected to return for the Blackhawks game in their home opener against the Avalanche. Things seem to be going well. He does have a chronic immune response syndrome, so we'll see. Hopefully, he's back in shape and should be ready to go. The Ovechkin injury, as I mentioned earlier, it did just happen in the last kind of preseason game against the Flyers. It is a leg injury, so we're not sure exactly what his return timetable will be. As well, Zach Kassian down hard with a concussion, entering the concussion protocol for the Oilers. We don't know how long he'll be out. He will go through the protocol, usually lasts a few days. A little bump to the head he suffered in their last game. So lots of injuries coming out of the preseason. No surprise, being it's been a little while since players are playing. This is going to be a tough season, and lots of people are pushing hard to make an impact. So there's lots to go on the injury front. As well, we talked last week, actually the last 2 weeks, we've been talking about Josh Ho-Sang from the Toronto Maple Leafs, who did sign to come to Leafs training camp on a professional tryout agreement. So he has been signed to the Toronto Marlies, who is the Leafs minor league team, their farm team of the AHL, to a 1-year contract, but it is strictly an AHL contract. It is not a two-way deal. Now, certainly, if there are injury issues, the Leafs can sign him, extend that one-way contract, the AHL contract, to a two-way so he can come up. So we'll have to see what develops there. I know he was really hoping to start with the club, but he is going to be with the Marlies. So into some other Leaf news. Sorry, Lindsay. But the following players that we have talked about the last couple weeks have been reassigned from the big club, the Leafs, down to the Toronto Marlies of the AHL. Mikhail Abramov, Joseph Duzak, Noel Hoffenmeyer, Timu, not even going to pronounce that last name, Jack Kopeka, Jeremy McKenna, and Nick Robertson. To me, Nick Robertson is the big shock here. His brother, Jason Robertson, is tearing it up in Dallas. Nick really hoped to make the team last year. Was a little bit of a disappointment. Spent the year in the Marlies, did quite well. Came in strong in training camp. Laid the body a little bit on Mitch Marner. We talked about last week. But a lot of people thought he might have a chance at making the club. So now he may just go down, spend some time with the Marlies, and come up a little bit later on in the season. So we'll have to see what develops with Nick Robertson, but definitely not the news that he was hoping for. So that gets a lot of injuries and a lot of roster moves out of the way. Let's talk about upcoming schedules and what it's going to look like. So, as I discussed, October 13th, this Wednesday, 7 p.m., the Leafs and Canadians, and this will be our first live stream watch along. So make sure to go back to our channel and set your reminder for that. You won't want to miss it. Price. Oh yeah, Lindsay, that's a good point. We should talk about Carey Price. Let me back it up there for a second. Carey Price, and I don't want to get too much into his story, but as we all know, Carey Price, one of the best goalies, hands down across the league, has definitely had some tough times over the year. Solid, for the Montreal Canadiens. There was big rumors that, he may actually be on the move to the Seattle Kraken when they did their expansion draft. He was not taken, and Carey Price just recently reached out for some help and support from the NHL and the NHLPA. He's going through some tough times, so we do want to wish Carey Price and his family the best in his recovery. We hope to see him back soon. I know, whenever Toronto and Montreal faced each other, Carey Price usually had something to say in the outcome of that game because he is just solid. So sorry to see what he's going through, but better times ahead for him as well, and hopefully we see him back very, very soon. Thank you, Lindsay, for definitely calling that out. So we have our kickoff the 13th. It's actually going to be a kind of back to back for Toronto. The 14th, we're right back in Ottawa where we played tonight. Then on the 16th against Ottawa again, a little home and home, followed by the Rangers and the San Jose Sharks. And these two games on the 18th and the 22nd, these are big milestone games for us. Real key, because if you watched any hockey last year, or even if you didn't, but you kind of had an ear to the ground, with COVID and everything going on and how it impacted sports, the NHL created a Canada-only division. And it wasn't until the semifinal round of the playoffs when a Canadian team got to face a US team. So it is really exciting that, on October 18th, it's the first time in a very long time when our Leafs are going to take on the Rangers and then the Sharks on the 22nd. Now, if I kind of flip over to my other team that I love, the Florida Panthers. Florida has a tough start to the season, and they're in a really hard division. But they're kicking it off on the 14th against the Pittsburgh Penguins, Crosby, Malkin, and team. Then up against New York Islanders, who had a solid run last year, actually really surprised me. 19th against Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa is one of the heavy favorites again this year, and we're going to talk about kind of the season projections very soon. After the Lightning, if that isn't hard enough, they then go to one of the other favorites for this year, the Colorado Avalanche. Finally, on the 23rd, they get a little breather, but I don't want to take Philadelphia too lightly because they're a hard-hitting, really grinding it out team. So for Florida, a really, really tough start to the schedule in a really tough division. So we'll see, how they come together as a team. They're a fairly new group. We talked about this a little bit last week when we went through their schedule. Or sorry, not their schedule, their roster. They've brought in a lot of different pieces. They lost a lot. But we'll see what they do now that they've brought in these new people. They've had some time to kind of gel together. They should be a pretty good team. Some great news for the Florida Panthers is their re-signing of Alexander Barkov, an 8-year contract extension with the Panthers. This is huge. This game changer. If Barkov would have left, it would have been big trouble. Losing Trocheck was hard enough, but Barkov, he is kind of the solid piece of the puzzle there. So they needed to lock him up, which they did, which is really, really great. Now, if we flip back over and we talk about the Leafs and the roster moves, this is going to change. I did kind of look this up and pull this earlier because Mikheyev went down in today's game. There's a big hole on the left side with John Tavares. But I think everybody that I found online seems to be in agreement that Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner are going to be on the top line with Nick Ritchie on the side. So Nick Ritchie is filling in for the spot that was left open by, unfortunately, Zach Hyman, who moved over to Edmonton. Still a huge Zach Hyman fan, but now he's going to get a chance to play with McDavid, which is going to be amazing. So happy for him. Sucks for us, but I think Nick Ritchie's going to come in. He's a grinder. He's a hard worker. He's already proven it in the preseason. A couple goals, standing in front of the net, blocking shots, and in the defensive side, pushing and shoving, causing some screens on the offensive side. So I think he'll fit in nicely with Matthews and Marner. So Mikheyev out, question mark on that side. Tavares and Nylander, we saw what they did last year. Great chemistry. Nylander kind of woke up last year, still a little bit soft, but seems to be really moving ahead. And I know him and Tavares have been trying to really make sure they get a good connection and get going early this year. In the past, what we've seen is, Tavares would get on a really, really hot start, and then he'd start to slow down, and Nylander would pick it up. We're hoping these two can start on the same foot. And before I go kind of to the next spot of the lineup, I see 222, welcome in. So glad you're here. Want to say hello. D, welcome in. Thank you for letting me stream tonight and every night. And everybody else who I don't see in the chat that is here with us. Thank you guys for tuning in as well. Much appreciated. Do make sure to hit that thumbs up, get those likes going. If you are watching tonight and you haven't subscribed, please do hit that subscription button. We are having an unbelievable week, an unbelievable several weeks, I should say. Things are going really, really well for the channel, and we want to keep pushing it out and building it as we go. We currently sit, as of right now, at 168. We're 2 away from 170. So if you're watching and you haven't hit the subscription button, or you have a cousin, a nephew, anybody who's interested in hockey, retro, anything we do, send them over. Let's get them to subscribe. 2 away from 170, which is awesome. So thank you all. Now back to the lineup. Third line, what is shaping up to look like? Alexander Kerfoot, who originally seemed like a surprise to still be with the club. We thought he was going to be the guy that got picked up by the Kraken in the expansion draft. When they made the trade and they brought in McCain, everyone thought Kerfoot was gone. And then the Kraken took McCain. What it came out to be after the fact is it was kind of not prearranged, but they kind of expected that. It was set up so they would make the trade, they'd bring in McCain, Kraken would take McCain, we'd remain with Kerfoot. Kerfoot looks great in the preseason. He's really moving, good hands, good skater. It looks like he's going to line up with David Kempf and Cachet, or Cash, as they call him. This is going to be a line to watch. Kempf and Cash can be grinders. They can duke it out. Kerfoot's got the speed. They all have hands. So I'm very, very curious to see what this line is going to look like. Kind of wrapping it up, we got Bunting, who's had an unbelievable preseason with Spezza and Simmons. Really, really solid core. I think they're going to do well. And at any time, and what we may actually see is Bunting kind of moves up alongside Mikheyev, and Pierre Engvall, who I have in the cut line, he could slide into that fourth line with that injury to Mikheyev. So some shuffling to go around and see. I'm thinking we might see that happen where Bunting goes with Tavares and Nylander and Engvall kind of in the fourth line spot. So I didn't kind of bring up the defensive core. I think the defense is pretty much solid. They didn't have a lot of room. I don't want to talk too much about the D because usually what happens is whenever I talk about their defense, something changes and they don't have a great start. So a little bit superstitious. So I'm not going to talk about the D too much. But we'll see on Wednesday when we're kicking off the preseason and we're doing the watch along. We'll see exactly how that roster is going to shape up. And we'll also get some injury updates. So now this is the interesting piece. Looking in the hockey news. So for those of you who may not know, Hockey News is a magazine, subscription magazine, and it is kind of the hockey Bible, if you will. They put out some of the best fantasy sports information. Come playoff time, their playoff edition has all the anticipated line matchups. So when you're picking your fantasy teams, you can really hone in on who plays with who. And so in their issue before the regular season starts, they kind of publish what the favorites are to get into the playoffs and what that playoff bracket is going to look like. And when I first looked at this, it was a little bit of a tough pill to swallow. And Lindsay, unfortunately, the Hockey News does not predict Montreal to be getting in the playoffs. And Coach N, I don't know if you're in the chat or not, but they unfortunately do not have Buffalo making it in the playoffs either. As we mentioned, kind of when we were talking earlier about the schedules, Tampa Bay and Colorado, definitely two of the favorites to go through. With Tampa, Boston in the first round, Boston getting knocked out. Sorry, Anthony, but Boston, at least they'll make it in. Florida versus Toronto, first round matchup. That's a tough one. That one, I hope that doesn't happen. I would actually rather see like Florida, Tampa, or Florida, anyone else to pin my two teams that I'm rooting for in the first round of the playoffs. That's just not fair. It's just cruel. But they do predict, Florida to beat out Toronto, giving Toronto another year of a first round loss in the playoffs. But we're gonna not think about that too much. New York Islanders, Philly, that's a no-brainer. Islanders kind of going to the next round, beating the Panthers and getting to the semifinals. And then Washington, Carolina, Carolina taking that one. And that's interesting because Carolina last year they came out hot. They looked good, so they will be even better this year. So setting up on the eastern side, a Tampa, New York Islander semifinal with Tampa moving to the Stanley Cup final. In the western side, Colorado taking on Dallas, Colorado moving on. The Winnipeg Jets versus St. Louis Blues, and they're actually predicting Winnipeg to take on the Blues and move to the next round, which is interesting because Winnipeg has a solid team. A lot of young guns, a lot of interesting players there with Ellers and Scheifele and whatnot, and guys who have kind of been very streaky, been hot, cold, hot, cold. So we'll see what Winnipeg does this year. We have Las Vegas against Minnesota, and they have Vegas kind of running the table there. And then Edmonton, Calgary, which is going to be an unbelievable matchup. They are predicting Calgary to get past Edmonton. And if that actually does happen, if Edmonton loses, if they don't make the playoffs or they lose in the first round, I think they're going to blow up that team and start rebuilding. With so many strong players and so many number one draft picks, if that team, with McDavid and Hyman and Draisaitl, the list goes on and on. If they do not perform, it'll be trouble in Edmonton. Next round, well, as you can see, kind of Calgary then gets knocked out by Vegas. You have a Vegas-Colorado semifinal, sorry. This is a coin flip. Both such strong teams. They pick Vegas going in. I think it could end up being Colorado. Then you have, Vegas, Tampa in your final again. I do not want to see that. We talked about this somewhat in our first pilot episode of Hockey Talk. I did not like how Tampa kind of did dirty to win the cup last year. Kucherov being hurt all year, came back towards the end. They could have put him in, but they didn't have the cap space. They waited for the playoffs, and then they brought him in when there was no cap. So did not like that, but it is what it is. So it looks like we're going to have a Vegas-Tampa final. That is the prediction. So really interesting season shaping up. I'm really excited. I hope you guys are excited as well. There's so much going on, and it'll be very interesting to see how a lot of these rosters move around and take shape and really come to be. So what time is it here? So we're almost at half past. I do like to try and keep these shows to about half an hour. I do want to ask, for those of you that are still in the chat, I'd love to know, Lindsay, I know you guys are Montreal fans. I'd love to hear who some of the other teams are that you guys watch. I know, Anthony with Boston and Coach with Buffalo. There's a couple other folks that are also kind of Leaf fans and Montreal fans and Boston fans. Those seem to be some of the top teams for sure, the popular teams. As well, I do want to call out Hockey Fan 35, who I've been chatting with recently, is a big Nashville fan. And Nashville had a solid preseason going 4-1-1. So I expect to see some big things from Nashville. They didn't really make the Hockey News' list, but that's okay. It is what it is. So we're in for a great season of hockey. There's so much going on. And hey, Anthony, yeah, Boston is extremely popular. I don't know if you saw, I just had up kind of the Hockey News chart. Unfortunately, the Hockey News is predicting Boston to meet up with Tampa in the first round, and Tampa kind of taking them to school a little bit, which is disappointing for you, I'm sure, but just as disappointing as my Leafs also another year getting knocked out in the first round. What makes this prediction really interesting, and for anyone who follows hockey a lot and really close, is this is based off the teams and the rosters today. This all changes come trade deadline day. So in several months, when we're making the final push to the playoffs and everybody starts making changes, Guys will flip, guys whose contract are up, teams will sign them, bring them in for the playoff run, see if they can make a difference. So just because this is predicted today doesn't mean a couple changes throughout the season can't completely change this setup. So if your team isn't here or get knocked out early, at least this is what I'm saying because my team's going to get knocked out early and I don't want that to happen. This could change drastically, and let's hope that is the case. Um, so big things I expect to see around the league. I love having these conversations and these chats with you. Whoops, sorry, hit the wrong slide. um, so that does kind of bring us to our time this evening. A few things to watch for. Again, just as a reminder, on Wednesday at 7 p.m. is the Leaf Montreal regular season kickoff game. We will be doing a live watch along stream. So if you're a hockey fan and you're watching the game or you're watching something else, throw us up on another browser window, throw us up on another screen. I will have a special guest with me watching that game and talking through it. So that'll be a lot of fun. So join us for that. Tuesday is our retro day where we turn back the clock and we go back in time. This week we are going to be talking about cartoons, some of the old Saturday morning specials, and a bunch of other cartoons as well. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, next Saturday night we'll be right back here with Hockey Talk. We'll continue talking puck, and we'll look forward to really digging deep into how that first week of the season went. Now, the last thing I'm going to leave you guys with is I have been working with Pete McDevitt, like a lot of others have, and I have also had a commercial that just aired with Pete on his site. I'm going to kind of bring it up on my phone for you. So I do want to say definitely go support Pete. Check out his site. Check out all his sports calls. They are amazing. But I'm going to leave you with this before we kind of wrap today. So here is the official commercial that just dropped for our channel. Let's see if I can get a good. Yeah, it's too glary, but you get the idea. Let me play it for you. Let's try that again. Hey, it's Sam from YouTube channel SamwellB12. Come join us for some family fun entertainment. We love to turn back the clock and go retro, talking about old movies, music, games, toys, and more, as well as sports. Come join us for Hockey Talk. Watch our videos as we travel around Ontario, Canada, visiting Canada's Wonderland, golfing, and more. Live streams of video games and Lego builds. Can't wait to see you in our chat. We'll see you at SamwellB12 real soon. So thank you guys all for watching. I really appreciate you joining us tonight. As always, giving us your time. We look forward to seeing you for our retro stream, for our hockey watch along, and of course next week for more hockey talk. Till then, be safe, keep smiling, have a great week, and we'll see you real soon. Good night, everybody.